For years, I quietly paid the bills no one ever acknowledged, covering groceries, rent, even medical expenses, while they mocked my lonely life and called me selfish for not having kids. I said nothing until I found receipts for luxury vacations I was never invited to and found all charged to the card they promised they never used. I, 34 discovered the truth on a Tuesday morning while looking for my insurance documents. The folder was stuffed in the back of my filing cabinet, and when I pulled it out, a stack of papers came with it. Credit card statements. Ones I hadn't requested. Ones I thought had been canceled years ago. The first charge made my stomach drop. A 5-star resort in Cancun. $8,000. I flipped to the next page. A cruise to the Mediterranean. $12,000. Then another. A ski resort in Aspen. $6,000. Page after page of luxury vacations, designer purchases, spa treatments, first-class flights. All on the credit card I'd added my brother to 6 years ago for emergencies. The card he swore he'd never touched after that one time. I sat on my office floor for 20 minutes, just reading. The charges went back 3 years. $53,000. $53,000 of trips and experiences I was never invited to, never even told about, all while I was writing checks to keep their lives comfortable. My hands were shaking when I finally stood up. Not from anger yet. That would come later. First came the hollow, sick feeling of understanding just how completely I'd been played. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. 8 years ago, my brother lost his job. He had 2 kids and a mortgage, and his wife had just gone back to school. I was single, no kids, making decent money as a software engineer. When he called asking if I could help with groceries for a month, I didn't hesitate. Family helps family. That's what we do. 1 month became 2, then 6. Then it just never stopped. The requests evolved. Could I cover their electric bill this month? Their car payment? My nephew needed braces. My niece needed a laptop for school. The water heater broke. The roof was leaking. Each request came with the same grateful promises. They'd pay me back. Things were just tight right now. Next month would be better. I never asked for the money back. It felt petty. They were struggling, and I was doing fine. What was a few hundred here and there when I had it, and they didn't? But it wasn't just my brother. My sister went through a divorce 4 years ago. Suddenly, I was helping with her rent. Then her car insurance. Her medical bills. My parents retired early with almost nothing saved. Dad needed a new roof. Mom needed dental work. The property taxes were too high. Could I help just this once? Every single time, I helped. I paid. I never complained. I lived in my modest apartment while they upgraded their homes. I drove my 10-year-old sedan while they leased new SUVs. I took my lunch to work while they posted photos of expensive dinners. I told myself it was fine. They needed it more. I didn't need much. Material things didn't matter to me. What did matter, apparently, was being their personal ATM machine. The mockery started around year 3. Little comments at first. My mom asking when I was going to settle down, said with just enough edge to make it clear she thought something was wrong with me. My sister joking that I was married to my job. My brother's wife making pointed remarks about how nice it must be to have so much free time and disposable income without the responsibility of children. At family dinners, they'd talk about their lives, their kids' achievements, their home improvements. When they'd turn to me, the questions were always the same. Still single? Still in that same apartment? Still just working? The subtext was clear. My life was small, unimportant, selfish, even. My sister said it outright last Thanksgiving. We were sitting around the table, and she was complaining about how expensive everything was with kids. She looked at me and said I couldn't possibly understand real financial stress because I only had to worry about myself. That it must be nice to be so selfish with my money. I was paying her rent at the time. Had been for 8 months straight. $1,400 a month. She knew this. They all knew what I was doing for them. But in their minds, I was still the selfish one because I wasn't building the life they thought I should have. Because I didn't have kids. Because I lived simply. Because I didn't complain about funding their lives while they mocked mine. I said nothing. I just kept writing the checks. My brother was the worst. He'd call me on Sunday nights, always casual at first, asking about work, pretending to care about my week. Then the ask would come. The furnace died. The property taxes were due. His daughter needed money for a school trip. Could I transfer him $2,000, $3,000, $5,000? I'd check my account, do the mental math of what I could afford, and send it. He'd thank me, promise it was the last time, and hang up. A week later, I'd see photos on social media of him and his family at some expensive restaurant or sporting event. But somehow there was never money for the bills. His wife once called me on my birthday. Not to wish me happy birthday. She didn't even mention it. She called to ask if I could cover their mortgage payment because they'd overspent on Christmas. I was sitting alone in my apartment with a grocery store cake, and I was transferring them $2,200 so they wouldn't lose the house they'd somehow refinanced twice. The thing about being the giver in a family is that nobody sees you. They see the money. They see the solution to their problems. But they don't see you drowning quietly while keeping them afloat. They don't see the promotions you don't celebrate because you're too tired. The hobbies you gave up because the money went elsewhere. The relationships you didn't pursue because you were too busy being everyone's backup plan. I stopped dating seriously 3 years ago. Not because I didn't want to, but because how do you explain to someone that you make 6 figures, but live like you make 40,000 because you're supporting for other households? How do you build a future with someone when you're mortgaged to your family's present? But none of that mattered apparently. I was still selfish, still living my lonely little life, still not contributing anything meaningful because I didn't have kids to show for it. The credit card statement sat on my desk for 2 days before I did anything. I kept picking them up, reading through them again, hoping I'd misunderstood. But no, every charge was clear. While I was eating ramen and skipping my own vacation days to save money, my brother and his wife were island hopping in the Caribbean. While I was transferring money for their mortgage, they were staying in hotels that cost more per night than my monthly rent. The card had been for emergencies. That was the agreement. He'd needed it once for a car repair, and I told him to keep it only for real emergencies. He swore he understood. He swore he'd never abuse it. 3 years of luxury vacations weren't emergencies. I finally called him on Thursday evening. He answered cheerful, asking what was up. I asked him if he'd used the credit card I'd given him. There was a pause, then a casual admission. Yeah, a few times. Nothing major. Why? I read him the first charge. The Cancun trip. $8,000. He went quiet. I kept reading. The cruise. The ski resort. The hotels. The flights. All of it. When I finished, the silence on the other end was deafening. He tried to explain. They'd been so stressed. They needed a break. They were going to tell me. They were going to pay me back. It just never seemed like the right time. Besides, I told him he could use it for emergencies, and their mental health was an emergency, wasn't it? I asked him if he thought I was stupid. If he really believed that counted as an emergency when I was covering his actual bills. If he thought I'd never find out. He got defensive then. Started saying I didn't understand the pressure of having kids. That I couldn't judge their choices because I lived such a simple life. That I had money to spare anyway. So what did it matter? I told him I wanted every dollar back. He laughed. Actually laughed. He said there was no way they could pay that back. That I should have kept better track of the card if I was so worried about it. That this was partly my fault for not monitoring it. I hung up. My sister called an hour later. My brother had apparently told her everything, but with his version of events. She was calling to tell me I was being unreasonable. That family helped family without keeping score. That I was being cruel to demand money back when I knew they were struggling. That I'd given them the card, so this was on me. I asked her if she knew about the vacations. She went quiet, then admitted yes, she'd known. She'd even gone on one of them. The cruise. My brother had paid for her ticket as a thank you for helping with the kids. She said it like this made it better somehow. Like because it was a gift between them, it didn't count as my money. I told her I'd been paying her rent for 8 months. She said that was different. That was helping. This was just being petty about money I could afford to lose. I asked her when she was planning to stop needing help. She got angry then. Told me I was being selfish. That I didn't understand what it was like to actually struggle because I had no real responsibilities. That at least her money went to something meaningful, unlike mine which just sat in my account doing nothing. I hung up on her too. My parents called the next morning. Both on speakerphone. They'd heard everything and wanted to mediate. They understood I was upset, but I needed to be realistic. My brother couldn't pay that money back. It would destroy him financially. Was I really going to ruin his life over this? They'd raised me better than that. I asked them if they thought what he did was okay. My dad said no, but mistakes happen. That my brother had made a bad choice, but he was still family. My mom said I was being dramatic. That I'd given him the card, so I was partly responsible. That I should have checked the statements sooner if I cared so much. I asked them if they knew I'd been paying their property taxes for 3 years. Silence. Then my dad said that was my choice. I offered. Nobody forced me. I told them I offered because they said they needed help. Not so my brother could fund vacations while pretending to be broke. My mom said I was making this about me when it should be about family. That I was choosing money over relationships. That I was being the selfish person they'd always worried I'd become. Something broke in me then. Clean and final. I told them I was done. Done paying. Done helping. Done being the family bank while being treated like the family disappointment. My dad started to argue, but I cut him off. I told them they had 30 days to figure out their finances because after that, I wasn't covering anything. My mom cried, said I was abandoning them, that they'd sacrificed everything for me growing up, and this was how I repaid them. I reminded her that I'd given them over $40,000 in 3 years. She said that wasn't the same as being there for family. I asked what I'd been doing for 8 years if not being there. She didn't have an answer. I hung up and blocked all their numbers. The next month was chaos. Text messages from my brother's wife saying I was ruining her children's lives. Voicemails from my sister crying about losing her apartment. My parents showed up at my office twice. Security had to escort them out. They told anyone who'd listen that I'd cut off the family over a misunderstanding. That I was having some kind of breakdown. That I'd always been difficult. I changed my number. Moved to a new apartment. Started therapy to deal with the guilt that kept trying to claw its way back in. Because that's the insidious thing about being used by family. They condition you to believe that protecting yourself is betrayal. That boundaries are cruelty. That you owe them your sacrifice because they're blood. My therapist asked what I'd wanted from them. Not money. Just acknowledgement. Just one person to say thank you and mean it. To see me as more than a resource. To treat my life as valuable even without the markers they deemed important. I wanted to be seen. I never was. The credit card company initially said I was responsible for the charges since I'd authorized the user. I hired a lawyer. We built a case around fraud and unauthorized use beyond the scope of agreement. It took 4 months, but the charges were reversed. My brother received a letter notifying him of the debt in his name. He called from a number I didn't have blocked, screaming about how I destroyed his credit. How could I do this to family? I didn't answer. I just forwarded the call to my lawyer. My sister lost her apartment. She sent an email saying I should be proud of myself for making her homeless. That she'd never forgive me. That our relationship was over. I felt terrible for about 2 days. Then I remembered her calling me selfish while I paid her bills. The guilt faded. My parents had to sell their house. Downsized to a small condo. My dad sent one letter. It was bitter. Accusing me of elder abuse. Of abandoning them in their time of need. Of being a disgrace to the family name. He didn't mention the years of help. Just the moment I stopped. I didn't respond. Update 1. 6 months after I cut contact, my brother's wife filed for divorce. I heard through a mutual friend. Apparently, the financial stress was too much. The credit card debt, the mortgage they couldn't afford, the lifestyle they'd been living on borrowed money. All of it collapsed. She took the kids and moved in with her parents. My brother moved into a studio apartment. Part of me felt vindicated. The life they'd built on my money crumbled the second I stopped funding it. But mostly I felt sad. Sad that it took losing everything for him to maybe, possibly, understand what he'd done. He never apologized. None of them did. My sister moved in with our parents. From what I understand, it's not going well. Too many personalities in too small a space. All of them used to living beyond their means, now crammed into a 2-bedroom condo, blaming me for their circumstances. I rebuilt my savings in less than a year. Without the constant drain of supporting 4 households, money accumulated fast. I took my first real vacation in 8 years. Went to Japan alone. It was incredible. I started dating again. Met someone who actually saw me. Who thought my quiet life was peaceful, not pathetic. Who didn't see my lack of kids as a character flaw. We're taking it slow, but it's real. Update 2. It's been 2 years now. I haven't spoken to any of them. They tried reaching out a few times through cousins and old family friends. The message was always the same. I should forgive them. Family is family. Life's too short to hold grudges. All the same guilt tactics that worked for years. They don't work anymore. My brother sent a letter 6 months ago. Not an apology. An explanation. About how hard his life had been. How much pressure he was under. How he made mistakes, but he was trying to be better. He asked if we could talk. I threw the letter away. I bought a house last year. Small, but mine. No mortgage because I finally had the savings. My parents heard about it somehow. My mom sent a card saying she was happy for me, but hurt she wasn't included in this milestone. That I'd shut them out of my life. That she missed me. I almost responded. Almost. But then I remembered her calling me selfish while I paid her bills. I remembered her defending my brother's fraud. I remembered her crying about me abandoning them while never once acknowledging what I'd given. I kept the card for a week, then threw it away too. The thing about cutting off toxic family is that nobody prepares you for how good it feels. Everyone warns you about the guilt, the loss, the empty chair at holidays. But nobody mentions the peace. The way your nervous system finally relaxes when you're not waiting for the next request. The way your money becomes yours again. The way your life expands when you're not shrinking to accommodate everyone else's needs. I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them. The family I thought I had. The people who would have appreciated my help and loved me anyway. But those people never existed. What existed were users who saw me as an ATM. And I don't miss being used. My girlfriend asked if I'd ever reconcile with them. I told her no. Not without real apologies. Not without accountability. Not without them doing the hard work of understanding why what they did was wrong. She said that might never happen. I said I know. I've made my peace with it. Some bridges are supposed to burn. Some families are only families in name. Some people will take everything you give and still call you selfish when you finally say no. I spent 8 years trying to be enough for them. Trying to prove my worth through my wallet. Trying to earn love I should have been given freely. I'm done trying. Done proving. Done setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I'm building a life now. A real one. With people who see me. Who value me. Who understand that generosity isn't the same as martyrdom. It's quiet. It's simple. It's exactly what they mocked me for wanting all along. And it's mine. Finally, completely mine. They called me selfish for years. Maybe they were right. Maybe choosing myself after a lifetime of choosing them is selfish. But if taking care of myself, protecting my peace, and refusing to be used is selfish, then I'll be selfish. Gladly. I paid the bills nobody acknowledged. I funded the lives nobody thanked me for. I gave until I was empty, and they still wanted more. I found the receipts that proved what I already knew deep down. That to them, I was never family. I was funding. And funding doesn't get a seat at the table. It just gets spent. Not anymore. Never again.